Lab Guy here. I hope you've been enjoying my NBTV series. NBTV stands for Narrowband Television, for those people who didn't know that. Narrowband television specifically refers to John Logie Baird style mechanical television, though there are electronic versions of it, as you saw with my cathode ray televisor. There's the mechanical versions, as in the big televisor, which had a picture that big. That's a big one. And so on. If you're interested in the hobby, I can highly recommend it. It's challenging for sure when you start out. That is true. I have some experience in the electronics industry and with television, so it helped. But I'm not the world's greatest mechanic, so the mechanical set was challenging enough and easy enough too. I'd call them good medium-level projects for people who'd like to be challenged. It's possible to do these kinds of projects on the kitchen table. You get yourself a big pan and a big toolbox, a couple of plastic tubs to keep your working materials in, and you could pull this hobby off in a relatively small apartment, even in a motorhome or a trailer if that's where you're at. I think that if your life is not fulfilling you right now, get a hobby. Get a hobby. I don't care what it is. Fly tying, stamp collecting, get a ham radio license. Man, that's one of the easier things to do. And just get yourself a handy talkie, and next thing you know, you'll be chatting to some pretty good people. Anyways, enough of that. The 10-4 Eleanor is considered a completed project now. It came out beautiful. I'm very pleased with it. It couldn't be nicer. I've had this project box in a plastic storage tub for several years now, wondering what was going to eventually live in it. Well, here's the answer. If you want to know more about this particular project, I've just completed posting, let's call it Rev 1, of the construction article on my website, www.labguysworld.com. And if you go there to the front page, click on the link into the electronics and video projects, and it's the first project at the top. The next one down is the cathode ray televisor, then the big televisor, and then after that a dozen or so earlier projects, which are, some of them are finished, many of them are not. Lots of good information in there. If you're curious, bored, or interested in video electronics, how TVs and TV cameras and such, how they operate. All right, one thing I haven't covered or shown in any detail in the videos was the power supply that I settled upon for running the Eleanor. Okay, so I bought two of these on eBay for about $35. They're made by Globe Tech. They have a standard plug. These are linear power supplies. They have a big iron transformer. They're heavy. I've opened it up. It contains the transformer, the rectifiers, the filter, a 7805 regulator, 7812, and a 7912. And it outputs plus 5 volts, plus 12 volts, and minus 12 volts through a 5-pin 180-degree DIN connector. So at any rate, that's covered on the article on my website. I will post a link to that article in the description below. One thing I did to these power supplies when I got them is that when you plug them in, they are always on. These are vampires. Even though you're not using the Eleanor, you've switched off the DC. It's not pulling any power from here. The transformer in here is idling. It's using 1 or 3 or 4 watts. I don't know. Goodness, I haven't measured it. So what I did is I installed an AC power switch. These particular supplies are held together by 4 screws. It's easy enough to open them up using my drill and a wood chisel, of all things. If you need to shave your plastic opening to get it nice and square and straight, that's how I made this professional installation here. And simply cut that switch into the primary circuit of the transformer. Very straightforward, pretty hard to mess it up. And that was my improvement, so that when I'm not using Eleanor, I just reach down and switch it off. Oh, I switched this one on. I switch it off. Like I say, I got 2 of these for just under $40 or just over $40. Wasn't much. And compared to building one, could you build one? Sure. They're easy to build. If you want to go that route, build one. But if you've built 5,000 power supplies like I have over the years, just start buying power supplies. I talked about those a while back. Back to NBTV. Be sure to visit the NBTV.org, www.nbtv.org website, and sign up. The dues aren't very expensive. They're located in Britain. The folks I've dealt with have been easy to deal with, and you get this spiffy magazine both in PDF and paper if you go with the deluxe membership. I signed up. You may have noticed a couple of videos ago that I paid homage to a person named Karen Orton, who had been a very active member of this club and seemed to always be a step ahead of me. Whatever I would think of, I need to build something for NBTV, but everybody's built a monitor. I know I'll build a CRT monitor. I'd get the magazine. Oh, build this CRT monitor by Karen Orton. Okay, I'll build it with LEDs and a microcontroller. Oh, I'll build this LED monitor with LEDs and a microcontroller. I never met Karen. I never corresponded with Karen. I have great regrets about that. So if you see people out there online, you read a book. In this day and age, you read a book, that author is out there. You can easily get in contact with them. Write to their publisher. Go to the website for the book and you'll have instant contact with them. When I was young, I would read books, magazine articles. Never entered my mind that I could contact these people. I lived out in the sticks. I was a country boy out there in sheep country, cattle country. Not a lot of electronics engineers available to inspire and to mentor a young fella. But with a few good books found in yard sales and the city dump, a nice overhill hike a mile from our house, I was able to get all the electronics parts I needed. So I was able to fulfill my need for that hobby. Back to the switch on the power supply. I'm always forgetting something. I got the switches at American Science and Surplus. They're online, and I'll give you a link. I'll put the link in the description below. But they have a website. Oh, it's sciplus.com. sciplus.com. They have an electronicals section. The fellow who writes the copy for their catalog is quite witty and and clever. So they have an electronical section, and they have things like power plugs and some connectors and stuff. They have all kinds of interesting bric-a-brac. So another unpaid plug. An unpaid plug. No, unpaid plug. Now, what's coming after the 10.4 Eleanor? Well, after you folks who are watching this video, go to my website and go through my article. It's 5 web pages, 5 pages if you will. Think of it as a book. I know it's deficient in some details, overabundant in others. I actually trimmed it back. I have a tendency to repeat myself over and 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 over. And so I trimmed it down, and I've been tinkering with these pages for a few weeks now. I decided to put them up there. If you go to the last page, there's a link you click to get my email address, and you can write to me if you have questions, comments. If you want to write some copy that you think fits on that page, knock yourself out. Write it and send it to me. You'll get full credit for that. If you build the Eleanor, a copy of the Eleanor, or your own version of it, please contact me. Let me know. We'll share that with the world, and we'll brag you up. So anyways, now coming soon, the next project that I want to do, and it'll be the last of the NBTV series of projects, and it's the one that I've gotten the most feedback about, and it goes, why don't you build a camera? Well, a mechanical camera, though simple on paper, isn't as simple to build. But an electronic camera isn't as hard to build. But Lab Guy, in the 1920s, in the late 1920s, when Baird was working on his stuff, there was only one kind of camera tube. I know. It was the image dissector tube. Look familiar? Look at the top of my YouTube homepage. This is the camera tube for the upcoming NBTV. What did I call it? I gave it a clever name. Let me take a quick look. I'll be right back. It's the NBTV Dissector Cam. Okay, it wasn't as clever as I thought. But that's what it's going to be called, the NBTV Dissector Cam. This particular tube, I believe, is the one that has the smallest aperture of all of these that I have. I have 3 or 4 of this tube. This tube is the FW530 made by IT&T, probably early 70s, late 60s. FW130. FW. Who worked at ITT in the early 1970s? Farnsworth. It's a Farnsworth 130. FW130 is the number on this tube. There are a whole bunch of dissector tubes in the FW series from ITT. If you shop around and on eBay right now for a modest price, you can find the support base for the FW130. Half the time you will find these. There's a lot of pins, takes a lot of force. You will find this tube in a cryogenic refrigeration unit being sold as a very large photomultiplier tube. If you get lucky, it might have one of these. This is called a steerable photomultiplier. it actually has a low resolution imaging section on the end. These are used generally to look at like laser beam spots. I really think these ended up in the noses of 1970s heat-seeking missiles. You don't need a very high resolution picture feeding a computer. In fact, in that day and age, you wanted as low resolution as possible with a hot spot in the middle to seek out the target. So anyways, I think that's what these probably might have been designed for, but I don't know. I know that from some of the scientific papers I found, they were used for laser spot analysis and other low resolution kinds of interference pattern kinds of work, optical stuff. So anyways, back to these bases. The base itself will be labeled ITT FW130 in some fashion. It'll have two connections. It'll have power and it'll have cathode. This makes hooking this thing up really easy. I believe this one runs on 1 kilovolt. It's labeled 1 kilovolt. PA, I don't know what the PA stands for. Oh, positive. Positive. 1 kilovolt positive. 3.0 PA. Probably the signal output is 3.0 picoamps. I'm fairly certain that the divider circuit in here runs at higher than picoamps, but the signal could be picoamps. So you power it through the cathode connector, or excuse me, through the anode connector is the power, and the cathode connector is your output, and you'll terminate that into a 1 meg or a 2.2 meg ohm resistor. This all must be shielded. You'll notice that this one's a BNC. This end of the tube is at low voltage. This end of the tube is at high voltage, and I'm not sure. I think this connector is called a TNC, or it's a special high voltage screw-on connector, which I'm currently looking for one, though it isn't a showstopper for me. I'll make my own plug to put in there. But you do have to watch out for something. If this is not in its shield, and this one is not, there are some contact buttons here that are clearly labeled high voltage. So when you're operating it, make sure that you have plastic insulation. You have some form of insulation here. This body is made of Bakelite, which I think the reason for that is it'll withstand the cryogenic temperatures they run these at. You run a photomultiplier tube very cold to lower noise. So they use them in astronomy, usually as star trackers on a telescope. I know they use them in satellites for star tracking because there's no heater in a image dissector, and so it's considered high reliability for those kinds of applications. This deflection coil I'm using is from a XY computer monitor with a storage tube, so that the two coils are equal. A television yoke, I might be able to make it work, but this will be a lot easier. It's a very low impedance. I think, if I recall correctly, it's around 8 or 10 ohms. And I took an old plastic spool that a solder wick came on, and I've cut it down to make an adapter for the neck of this tube so that this deflection coil fits over the imaging section properly. It doesn't seem to be going down far enough. Huh. That's interesting. I can fix that. There's a little nub on the side here I hadn't noticed before. Alright, so anyways, that may help with the imaging of this tube. We'll get that on there the right way. So This tube, I measured it having a resolution of about 40 lines, 40 scan lines, which makes it perfect for a 32 line NBTV camera. So stay tuned for that coming in the future. That is the planned next NBTV project, unless someone suggests something better and easier. It'll be challenging. We'll see if I can make this one work. So far, I have made the FW130 make a picture and the mystery dissector tube, the 1-inch vivisector. I've made that one put out a picture. But in both cases, that was with just putting a photographic slide right on the face of the tube and shining light through that. Lots and lots of light. So we'll see how it goes to make this into an actual television camera. And if we get there and make it work, then good. If we don't, I'm sure we'll learn a bunch of things along the way. So I'll be building my first NBTV magnetic deflection system, which that shouldn't be very hard. I built a 2-channel high current op-amp deflection generator or amplifier a while back. There's videos about that on my channel. And it had an upper frequency of about 1.3 kilohertz or something. So I believe it's going to work for our 12.5 hertz and our 400 hertz just fine. We're going to finally find a use for that amplifier. And see if we can't make a narrowband TV camera. What else do I want to tell you? That's about it. Check the links in the description below to go and read my article about the 10.4 Eleanor, and to look at the other articles. The NBTV cathode ray televisor is covered in great detail there, and the big televisor, the color televisor, is covered in big detail, yeah, in good detail there too, and other projects. So let's see. Welcome all new subscribers. We're getting 2, maybe 3 subscribers a day. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Thank you. Welcome. I appreciate every single person that takes the time to watch one of these videos. It's an arcane subject, and I'm still, and I'll say it again, I say it every time, I'm just completely startled that people find this material interesting. Of course I find it interesting, but I'm OCD, you know. It's like the fella that was brought in front of a judge and charged with just heinous, horrible sex crimes. And the judge is all, what's wrong with you? How do you plead? He goes, insanity. Insanity? Yep, I'm crazy about that stuff. So I'm going to take an insanity defense on this hobby because I am crazy about this stuff. I love video electronics, and I hope it shows in my product. And I hope you keep coming back and following the progress of these projects. And I'll try to keep making them interesting and so on. So I will be taking a short break, maybe a week between these. I have some backed up document scanning to do. If you guys know what a TK42 RCA color television camera is, I've been scanning the manual of that now for going on a year, and it's halfway, and I really want to sit down and just plow through it and get that scanned into the computer and make that available. If you go to my website, there's a section called Service Manuals for Sale, and you can peruse that, and you'll see equipment you probably never even heard of. And if you're interested in those manuals, I show prices there. Nothing set in concrete. Talk to me. I always work something out with everyone. So at any rate, The only reason I charge is just to keep away the people who go, give me one of each. No, not going to do that. And with that, I've chewed on your ear long enough. Too much gristle for me. So until next time, Lab Guy out.